Hello, good morning, everybody, and good evening from the UK. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome. I'm the host for today for this workshop for moms. And today our show is coming to you at 10 o'clock Pacific. And next week we'll be meeting here at 5 o'clock Pacific time. So we alternate between those two times since we have listeners and speakers from various time zones. So that's great. Thank you all, anyone who's going to be joining us today on the replay. And if you're here live, that's great. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to our first eminent speaker, Tracy Cheney. So Tracy, welcome Tracy, and I've just lost the information. There we are, Tracy. So Tracy Williams Cheney is a master teacher, having taught thousands of kids over the decades, pre-K through 8th grade, 4 generations, starting with Generation X. She's a California Elementary Art Teacher of the Year. Her program was honored as a California Exemplary Program. Tracy was selected to serve on the California State Education Committee to write the new art standards for the public schools adopted by the California legislature in 2019. She designed an integrated art program, the Arts and Science Middle School, and created the first program for latchkey kids in her town, after school art studio, which operated for 7 years. Having worked in 14 schools and taught thousands of kids, Tracy has seen how important maintaining creative thinking is to child development and success. And so over to you, Tracy.
Well,
thank you for being here.
Thanks for that introduction. Yes, everybody, I have been teaching a long time. Let me get my slides up here, and then we can get rocking and rolling this morning. This is a favorite topic, and the reason I'm really wanting to talk to you today about this is because of the changes I have seen, I think, let me pull this up, with handheld electronics. And we do have our first generation going through that's been an extension of their hands. This is the generation that is our digital natives. And the reason we don't want to lose our creativity and our creative thinking, but we also are in such a point in the US on accountability, which seems like it's counterintuitive to creative thinking. And that's what we'll go through today and see what you as parents, how we can help and maintain this thinking in our kids. And, you know, we are confused about creativity. And this just a recap here of my intro, but thank you for joining me on this topic that really is near and dear to your child, because this is the mode that they think in. And I am just passionate about this topic. Having worked with so many kids, I have really seen being an educator who works with kids from the beginning that they start school through the end of that school at 5th or 6th grade and at middle school. So I get to see your child develop. And through those ages, really, that's why I'm coming to you with this talk. So I have a lot of material, and you might want to take notes. That's great. And we'll have a Q&A, and we can chat that way also. But I want to kind of define creativity for us. And it really is looking at things and putting things together in a new way, in a different way. And I'm hoping I'm in my right slideshow, because I am missing my cute little Reese's Pieces here. And the reason I bring that up is, who would have thought taking chocolate and peanut butter and making such a creation, right? It's something that we all love and are delighted about. But I have Gutenberg up. He did not invent the press. That was a coin press, but he took the idea of movable type. And it was so important for everyone to learn to read the Bible, which was their important text, having access to that. And of course, it changed the world. And I have a slide here referencing Apollo 13. If you've ever seen that movie. So we have really, really smart people. The amazing thing was that they could communicate, and they saved that mission by being able to repurpose things that they had on the spaceship and bring it home safely. That is an outstanding example of using creativity. So partly, and you see your kids playing this way, is playing with trucks and blocks and dolls and all of this thing, looking at things and putting things together in a new and different way. So we want to maintain this creative thinking process because there's really important things with it. This is, I think the most important thing is here in being able to deal with ambiguity when you're in a project. You don't know how it's going to turn out, but being able to sustain working through that and coming up with lots of solutions. Now, I do happen to love this quote. You know, and we're still dealing with Newton's theories. We're kind of coming away from them now as we're entering the quantum era. But wow, he changed the world just by asking the question, why? Now, kind of differentiating here a little bit between creativity and imagination. I know we use those terms interchangeably, but you know, if you think about Walt Disney, he created a whole department called the Imagineers. It was think up anything and we'll figure out how to make it work, because that's putting creativity to work. We've been through the information age, and we really are, you know, pushing on the creator economy now. It's kind of an era. Everybody's got information right at their fingertips. So it's how to, or to know how to do things. That's what people want now, is how do we do this? And this is where we need to maintain this type of thinking. And certainly Einstein thought his way to the theory of relativity. You know, it wasn't coming from anything else, thinking it. So I want to bring this study to your attention. It's used to criticize public schools still today, but it's so interesting to me. You know, in the late 60s with the moonshot and all the stuff and getting up into space, NASA was looking for a lot of, you know, talented workers, and they asked these psychologists to create a test so that they could give it to workers to see if they were going to be a fit for what they needed NASA to do. Well, then the psychologists had this idea. They took this very test that they were giving to these highly educated people and administered it to 1,600 kids in Head Start. So if you're in Head Start, you're there because you don't have the same economic resources and all that others do here in the US. And they were just astounded when they administered it to these small children who did not have resources, that at age 3 to 5, they were coming out at the 90% genius level. And they just couldn't get over this. So they followed those kids and they administered the same test to the kids, exact same test, 5 years later when they were between 8 and 10. And that level of genius had dropped considerably, as you can see on the chart. 5 years later, same kids, same test, and that genius level had dropped 22%. And by 1983, it had been administered to 200,000 adults. And you can see we're not considered very much genius there at when we get to be adults. And since then, there's loads of tests that have been developed trying to get at creative thinking. And, you know, they're administered, you could do them online for free now. But this is used as a criticism about schools. And, you know, handheld electronics hadn't even been invented yet. And you can't imagine what that has done to test results. But I want to talk to you about that and about schools, not as a negative, but as, you know, just what happens. So what I find is that kids are saying that school is hard and it's hard to think. And why is that? Well, isn't it have to do with we are spending a lot of time on screens, so we want education to be delivered in little bite-sized, gamified chunks. And teachers, you know, schools are adapting to that. We're looking at this generation, Gen Z, the youngest ones are in junior high now. This first group that's always had electronics, the iPad was invented in 2013 or 2010. So it's been around for about 13 years. And we just have to say that at the same time, we are expecting kids to be able to do more. And they're not necessarily coming as prepared to school. And where they need to be prepared and what kind of thinkers that little kids are is they are right brain thinkers. Now, I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit more here. But in the age of accountability, where we have made everything about high stakes testing, there isn't room for the way that kids really think. And there's all this work that we're doing in schools of trying to, prepare kids for what colleges said they need to be able to do. So we are losing track of the type of thinking that kids are really engaged in when they're small. Now, our brain does magnificent things, and I'm just going to talk about two of the thinking processes, but we do have more. But when we're talking about this, we need to see that they are two really very different functions, but small children really exist in the right brain modality. They are not analytical thinkers. They are totally working in the world that is nonverbal. But the left brain modality is equally important. You don't have to have original thought, but you do need to be able to learn the patterns and learn the skills and be able to copy from the board, all that stuff that's very left brain. And, it is the province of things that we have constructed. Time doesn't really exist for small children, and in the right brain modality, it doesn't exist either. It's a construct, and it takes a long time to learn all of this stuff. And we've really set up school to be able to teach all of that, leaving behind what we know is just as equally important, but we don't have a structure for it. So school is great at teaching you how to access all these different things that we've asked you to do. But what becomes the problem for kids as they get older is they don't even know how to access ideas. Isn't that interesting? But think about that for yourself too. So this is what creativity feels like. And you know that you've experienced it. We all have. We all have creative thinking. It's just we are, especially as adults, we're so much more engaged in the left brain modality. But, when we can sit and do something we really enjoy, a hobby, whatever it is, in the time where time ceases to exist, we know what that feels like. Now, Picasso, of course, brilliant. He had the skills. His dad was an art teacher. So he learned all of this stuff, but he rejected it at age 18. He could have made a fine living doing portraits. He was great. But he spent his life trying to get back to where he was as a little child and noticing how little children draw and the freedom that they have. Because see, there's no analysis with it. And that's what he spent his career getting back to. So creative thinking is we have to be doing something. I have the Edison's light bulb down here. We often think of it that as a negative. Wow, I tried this 10,000 times to get a light bulb. No, he learned there was 999,000 ways not to make a light bulb, but we keep going through it. That's a creative process. And that's what we need to make sure our kids are getting, because there is no answer set up on it. Like, doing a math problem or a spelling word, you get it right or you get it wrong. That doesn't exist here. And we need to get them through the process. We also want to make sure, and this is a really important right here especially for our girls that get hypercritical, and you have to be so careful about what you're saying, because what you say can reverberate in their souls forever, and they come to think of themselves as not creative, is that you're getting feedback. There's no judgment or criticism about it, but I spend time teaching kids. I'm not talking to you personally. Let's talk about the work. and let the work speak to you. And what does the work need? And let's try this or try that and get them out of it, because art is so connected to our soul and our self-esteem. So there's 4 basic elements that you as parents, if you're aware of this, can really do things to help move this along and keep it alive. And there's lots of little games and things that you can do, but this is the 4 things that we're doing. Now, I hate as an art teacher having to grade children's work, but accountability, everything has to get a mark on it. So with kids, I'd say if you've put all the elements in that we're doing on this project, great, you've got to be. But what I'm looking for here, originality, something that's about you or a little twist, that's what's going to take it to the next level. And that's what I'm always looking for in the artwork. Not that you're copying or doing some just, basic things, but let's move it along. And, there is such a sense when you achieve something, whether it's making a repair or gardening or cooking, all of these creative activities that require us to problem solve. So let's look where kids are at age 3. The minute they start reaching for a pencil or a pen or crayon, give it to them, because they've got miles ahead of drawing to be able to make some human leaps. That it's an internal thing. We can't do that for them. And the important thing here, and I think about this with early man, and when we think about cave art too, early woman actually, making that leap from a symbol that I can make this mark and it stands for something, and I can tell you what it stands for and you get it. That's what numbers are. So a child has to come to that themselves, and you get to it through drawing. And now in school, when we enter formal schooling, we've kind of lost track here that kids have to have a lot of drawing practice to be able to read and write, because that eye-hand coordination, it is what's connecting the synapses. And you need to have that to be able to, we're asking kindergartners now, 5-year-olds to write sentences. You've got to have a lot of drawing experience to be able to do that. And so what drives me crazy is that we flunk kindergartners saying they're not ready. Well, yes, for what we're saying, we would like you to be able to do as a 5-year-old. We need to look at what comes before that and realize they are totally in right brain thinking, totally. So where things I think fall apart, well, some that we're not giving kids art during school, but around age 10, there is a struggle for realism. And you may wish that they could do abstract things. That's not where they are in their thinking. And the thing that happens around age 10 is you actually grow into your eyes. So now you have depth perception. You can catch better. All that stuff that happens at this age also comes with the ability to understand and see adult artwork. Before that, kids are doing what they think here and they're getting it out in the visual language. But now kids start comparing their work and start shutting down. And this is where we have to really, really push on this. And you need to give them what they need here. And that is realism, so they can go on to abstract thinking. But it's not the other way around. And what do? We take art away. And the thing is, after spending this many years, they've been in school for a lot of years, language dominates. So we're very much into left brain thinking. We have developed analytical thinking, and sometimes applying it massively hard to ourselves. And so the kids don't necessarily, and there's not a lot of opportunity in school to keep working on the right mode of thinking. And, it takes just as much practice as the other. And what do we have happen? We have about, I don't know what the percentage is in the US, but so many American adults are stuck where they were in 6th grade, and they're drawing about the same way. And girls get stuck in heart, rainbows, and flowers. And it's so universal. And I see it across generations, from myself to my daughter to my granddaughter. And to be able to move out of that, because, it relates to careers. Now, we have a lot of people who are making decisions for the schools. Even within the schools, the people who are administrators are very seldom right brain thinkers, and they excel at left brain. They are good at that. And they're making decisions for even our kindergartners. We have shoved 1st grade down into kindergarten, and we're saying no art in kindergarten or no more drawing in kindergarten. They've got to write. We're asking kids to do something that is not even where their brain waves are located at this point. So we undervalue the art instruction and making it a fluff instead of seeing that it is a really important part of education. Now, if your child is not getting drawing in the school day, which quite likely they aren't, then you need to have some stuff set up at home. You could have, it doesn't always have to be drawing, but doodling is how you access the right brain. It's instant access. And so doodling is a great thing. And some kids doodle while they're listening still to you. It's a really important thing. Look at the explosion of adult workbooks or coloring books for adults. It's just amazing. And the important thing is here, most kids are visual learners, but their teachers aren't. Because especially, you love the teachers that I'm dying to teach reading and yay for them. But they're really, that's a left brain activity. And usually those are really strong left brain thinkers. And your kids don't necessarily spend their day with somebody who's teaching in the mode that they learn in best, which is visual, because that's where they are at this age. So the other reason you really need this is because we've got to get over the fear of being wrong. And what do we have? We have millennial parents and teachers who were educated in the US with no child left behind. So that became about having the one right answer. And that's affected our economy. When I talked to employers, said, wow, I hired young people for their ideas, but they can't think outside the box because they haven't been taught to. And, there are other countries that set out to beat the US. Here we are innovators, changing their education system while we're in this very highly structured testing mode. And I'm going to run through this because I realize this is my talk for teachers on dealing with, let's put some creative, what happens in your classroom, because the classroom is really set up for the teacher, and it's really about left brain activities. And so when you when you decide that you're going to do something in your classroom and everything changes and it feels chaotic, it's because you've changed in modalities and people aren't as experienced with that. So we have so many things that happen in a classroom if we go to an art project. And I can feel if I come in to do something with a class, or you just feel the energy. And a lot of times the anxiety level go up because it's switching what kids are good at. And actually the art kids are thrilled because they don't necessarily do as well in the other mode of thinking. And this is something for them. So the thing that I feel where in school for our boys, what has happened is we're even taking away block time and all the stuff that boys are developing their spatial intelligence. And we don't give them very much time to do that. And yet that's what's required in careers like architecture and engineering. And the guy who comes to your door to evaluate everything you've got in your house and get it into the moving truck and do it perfectly. That's spatial intelligence at work. It's really interesting that our kids that are the artistic kids can sometimes, because they feel like they should be good at this, they're the ones who are falling apart and crying and being very upset because they have a perfectionism about it. And it's like they can't settle down and get going with this. So it is a totally different dynamic with your classroom. And it's fascinating to watch and observe. And I'll have teachers say, wow, I always have problems with this kid. And I say, I never do, but it can be reversed. Kids who are no problem anywhere else can be a major problem in the art room because they're struggling with so many of these issues. And we're talking, these are kids. These are not adults. These are kids going through this. But we need to maintain our creative thinking abilities because our economy does depend upon it. Now, I am not being critical here about school. I am just saying that because we've decided what's really important for kids to learn, it takes a long time to learn them, and school's very good at teaching all of that, that the things that the way we're teaching it and all is killing the creative thinking, and we're not having opportunity to develop that. So this is where at home, we need to get past this. I know there's tons of worksheets, even in preschool now. And I wrote a book for preschool teachers because of the amount of worksheets that I was seeing. And that's adult produced materials. That's not kid produced. Kids need to be doing their own projects, their own work, wherever we can. So what I feel is that because we favor left brain subjects, because we can test for them. So the minute that we were not putting an emphasis on handwriting went out the window, right? And it is crippling. I really see it in the junior high, crippling the boys who are cannot hold a pencil correctly. I can't correct that in a 45-minute period. And it is having a profound effect because handwriting is so directly related, that drawing, all of that, that fluidity. And then guess what? We're going to grade them and make them feel even worse than they do. So it's like, we're not having a holistic approach here. So that's why it needs to happen at home, parents, that you need to be doing this stuff, even though they're resisting and not feeling good about it, you need to still be working with your kids on that. But to me, and if I'd gone on with my PhD, this is where I wanted to put my time, is this notion that girls mature faster than boys. It's that boys, and we talked about that, are developing their spatial intelligence. And are we cutting them off from the way that they think best? So if parents, these are important topics, and what you can do is, even if you're engaging in little games. So we talked about fluency, and we talked about lots of different ideas. One thing that my grandma used to do with us, we had little flashcards with, had ABCs. So we put down an A, and our topic was going to be names. So everybody think, be as many names as you could think that started with an A, and then with a B, and with a C, all of that, keeping that kind of thinking going. You can do it with foods. You can do it with things that are of interest to your child. Having a jigsaw puzzle set up is a great way for, an ongoing project that you can just sit down and pick up. We want to have some time, we read to kids, we know that's important, but wonder if you sat and drew with your kids, not teaching them how to draw, because they're not really trying to be a better artist. They're trying to express what they have here visually, and have a conversation or not a conversation, but you know what, you're entering the way that they think best and what they're doing. And just 15 minutes of side-by-side drawing puts you in their experience. And you know what, it's good for you too, because you need to get out of your analytical thinking, and you need to feel that it feels good. And that's because it's an important part of us as humans. And if just those small, simple things will do wonders for having a relationship with your kid in the way that they learn best. Remember, the way you're thinking and what you've been trained to do, and you're a mom and you've got to think of, we're going on a picnic, I got to remember to do all this stuff. Your kids aren't in that mode of thinking. They are in their creative and their imaginative thinking, and being with them. And don't you love it with 4-year-olds who can't tell the difference between what's real thinking and magical thinking, and it's just interchangeable with them. So have some time to be in their kind of thinking, because it's your kind of thinking too. It's there for you. So we could spend days talking about all of this, but mostly I really want to make sure that our girls that are deciding they can't do this starting at 9 years old, it's shocking that younger and younger it's gotten. I can't do this, I'm not good at this because of comparing. So we need to look at that, and then make sure that we're taking care of our boys too. So with that, as I say, we can do part 2 another day. And I just feel this is vitally important to, with the advent of handheld electronics, just remember that is not the children generating anything. That's an adult world. It's a 2D world that it's designed to be very seductive. And I'm seeing now phones put in the faces of babies on their baby carriers. And I just want to rip it off, because children need to be looking at the world. They need to be making all those conclusions for themselves. They're just absorbing all of it. And you'll see them reaching for a pen or a crayon to start processing it. And so it's very, very important that the amount of time that your kids are on screens, and believe me, I have 3 grandkids. I know the struggle with this. And school is all about one-to-one electronics now. But let's not lose track of this other type of thinking and what we need to be as successful human beings. So let me get out of this, come back to, I want to come back to you. Let's go to stop share. Okay. All right, Atiya.
Thank you, Tracy. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So much to think about, I think, as parents.
It is huge. And you can reach me. Let me put it in the chat here. You can always reach me at my website, and there are some things, if I'll put it here, and if you go to the preschool tab, there's things that you can download. I mean, there's a coloring page, and there's the book that I mentioned. If you really want to understand more about how all of this works together and the importance for little kids, then please join me over there. And this is a conversation that will go on and on and on. And I'm hoping that your kids and you can have a wonderful time meeting here in the right brain modality.
Yay, right brainers unite.
Yeah, so I want to introduce you to a wonderful gal here that I heard her speak like last fall and was just knocked out because this was somebody who talks my language. And Atiya is from London this morning with us, if you can believe that. And thank you so much for figuring out the time zones and making it possible, because I just am so happy to have you here. And I know our moms are going to be really excited to hear from you too. So Atiya Chaudhry-Green is a specialist coach and trainer in connection strategies that powerfully nurture and influence creativity, growth, and resiliency in children. She attained her neuro-linguistic master coach and trainer qualifications over 20 years ago and has been using those tools to positively impact lives. So from that, she founded Super Smart Stories. Atiya is very passionate about how adults and children can rewrite their narratives to prevent limiting beliefs and patterns of communication within their families that might be interfering with that. Now, she spent 37 years in healthcare in the UK, and she was a healthcare manager who loved delivering quality improvement projects. So I think you're somebody that we love to know, who's always working on the next thing and expanding your thinking. And she's contributed to the #1 Amazon bestseller, When Love Speaks. So I can't wait to hear you speak and tell us more about what we can do to stay connected with our kids.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tracy, for that. I'm just going to go over to the presentation mode. There we go. And hopefully you can see that. Is that okay, Tracy?
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to add my me speaking on the slide, but never mind, it's okay. You can watch the slide. So hi, everybody, and welcome. So my presentation is about creativity connections with your child, and let's dive straight in. So I don't think we've got anybody live today, but let me just set the context. I usually start my presentations by asking people here to think about, when you're listening to the replay here, is to be in a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And what I mean by that is we need to be curious, keep our mind open to new learning, because the topic today is about creativity. So I might say something that Tracy says and you'll think, oh, I've heard that already. Tracy said this, or somebody else has said this. But actually, when somebody else says the same thing, but in their way, sometimes things land in a different way. So it's useful to keep your mind open. And then there's something about how busy we are, and there's an expansion part of us and a constriction, and when we've got a lot on. So one of the things I like to do in my presentations is ask you to take some deep breaths. And as we've got just you here, Tracy, and myself, I'm just going to take, for the part of the presentation for people watching replays, I just ask you to take a deep breath in for 3 through the nose and out through the mouth, as if you're blowing through a straw. And I'm going to do that now. So deep breath in for 3 and out for 3. And that just gets rid of some cobwebs, just expands us a little bit more for the presentation. So here we go. So the other thing I like to do, or what I'd like to pose, is for yourselves to think about, do you have challenges using creativity with your child or children at the moment? And, just to think that for yourself, is it a yes or a no? And alongside that, how satisfied are you right now with creativity and connecting with your child? 1 out of 10. And 10 being excellent. And if you're excellent, we want to hear from you in the Workshop for Mums sisterhood group, so that you can share your ideas and what you do. So I think it's important to have a baseline of where you're at, so that you can then think about, have a choice about whether you want to expand your creativity a bit further that would help your children too. So the next slide here is about, Tracy's shared lots of quotes from phenomenal people. And this is one that I like, from Arthur Koestler. And I like this because the quote is, creativity is a type of learning process where the teacher and the pupil reside in the same individual. So for me, being the teacher here today, one of the things I am here today is a pupil, because I like to learn from, if we've got people on here live, hear about what other people are saying and how they do things. And from a mom and a child perspective, as a mom or a parent, you'll be intently looking at your child and looking at what they're doing and interested, but also bear in mind the child also models you and looks at what you're doing, and that copying strategy comes in. So the teacher and pupil resides in us both as part of creativity. So why am I here? So let me go into this so you can see my face. So Tracy did the introduction of me in terms of my bio, and I just wanted to share why I'm passionate about what I do at the moment, and what I do at the moment, what I'm doing and continue to do, which is, I'm 7 years old, and it's a winter's day afternoon, and we're all sat, a lot of children and the form teachers are sat in the assembly room in chairs, and the headmistress brings a TV screen, clicks the button. It's the 1970s, by the way. So I'm showing my age there. And clicks the button, and on the TV screen, this puppet show comes on called Sooty and Sweet. Anyway, what happens is it's quiet apart from the show being on, and all of a sudden I stand up and go, he's over there. And in that moment, 1,000 eyeballs start looking at me, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm replaying all this negative self-talk in myself, saying how stupid I was. People are looking at me. Why did I do that? So all this negative talk that I kept replaying whilst everybody else started looking at the program, watching the program. Anyway, roll on 23 years later, and I'm on this neuro-linguistic programming course, and the tutor asked us to think about something that we're curious about ourselves, how we are. And the thing that came up for me was I couldn't speak in large groups, and I thought, oh, I'd like to explore that. So anyway, we were put in pairs, and Richard said to me, Atiya, remember, just go back in time, and when was the time when you were in a large group? And guess what? This scene of my 7-year-old self came up, and I thought, oh my God. So I got that awareness around the fact that I was that self-talk that played in my mind was programmed in me, that as an adult it played out, and I wouldn't talk in groups. So I'm just going to transition into my slide for this quote. So childhood programming takes place, and this is a quote that I've done, which is certain childhood experiences become etched deeply into the grooves of the mind, the neurology and biochemistry of the body, and it can play out negatively in adulthood. So for me, let's all of us creatively reframe these experiences when they occur so that the child can live into their true, authentic, and highest potential. So in the context of this story that I shared, one of the things the teacher could have done to me was took me aside at the end of the program and said, Atiya, how are you feeling? And I could have said, oh, miss, blah, 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 whatever was going on in my head, to release that. And then she could have said to me, Atiya, you do realize you're unique. You're the only person that could put yourself in the scene of the program and be in it compared to everybody else. So that might have changed my perspective on things and helped me to, as you say, reframe is the word that we talk about. So that's one of the things I do as part of Super Smart Stories, is reframing that story and supporting the parents to help do that. So for anybody who's on the replay, I just want you to think about, what does this story spark in you, and what if you get any light bulbs or anything, light bulb moments, then please share with us in the Facebook group. So NLP very quickly basically came about because of a behavioral professor and a linguistics professor that came together, was interested in modeling how are people really, really successful. And so how are they successful? And they asked them lots and lots of questions. How are they thinking? How are they behaving? And this NLP came out, which actually shares different ways of thinking, behaving, and helps you to gain awareness around different programming. So the neuro bit is the mind-body connection through the senses and how it works. The linguistics, what language do we use to describe and categorize our world that supports us, and the programming is about sequences that are occurring in the patterns and thoughts and behaviors, and those can either hinder us or help us. So creativity practice using visual language then. So visual language is about, drawing things out. And we have the 5 senses that you've got here on the right: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, which means feelings, olfactory, which is from the nose, smell, and gustatory, which is taste. And so one of the ways that we creatively practice is that we need to connect with children based on what's going on for them through the power of language and using the right words. And it's at the age of 6 and 7, children start getting programmed, and they start using, their own preference of words. They might be visual, they might be auditory, they might be kinesthetic. The other 2 are not really used. It's generally used in the context of eating, or when you're smelling roses, or, smelling things and things like that. But in general conversation, it's we tend to use those 5 senses. So what does that mean in terms of creativity then, or creative practice? So one of the things is, you can do then, a tip for you to do is, first of all, as moms, you need to understand what kind of words and language pattern do you use. And one of the ways you can do that is just to think about a vacation that you're on, or a holiday. In the UK, we talk holidays, whereas in the US, I think you use the word vacation. If you're on a beach holiday, or if you went on a holiday, just think about that and just write 5 or 6 sentences of what happened. And you don't need to think about it hard. And the aim is for you to go back and look at that, what you've written, to identify when you started writing the first couple of sentences, did you use visual words first to describe what was going on? Did you use auditory, or did you use kinesthetic? So let me just go back to the presentation there. So which one did you use? So visual words that you might use are see, look, view, colours, watch, are in the sentences. there was lots of other visual words that you might have used. So one of the things you need to be looking at is what kind of visual words, what are visual words? And here I've just given you a few examples. So for auditory, you might say in your sort of description of your vacation, you might say, we went to, I don't know, so we went to the Seychelles and I could hear the lovely waves slowly crashing. So I could hear. So you might have started your sentence like that. Somebody else who's kinesthetic might have said, we went on holiday to the Seychelles and I could feel the wind on my face, things like that. So kinesthetic words are feel, hurt, happy, throw, and soft. So here I've just put some children with different patterns here, but in all of those instances, it's interesting that certain people go into certain roles. So a painter is mainly visual in their way of communication, and so people who are artistic in sort of paintings and things like that. And for people that go into music, they tend to be more auditory in terms of their language. So it's interesting how careers happen based on their language patterns. But let me just do a recap then. So on this, so in terms of what you need to be thinking about as a mom is understanding how do you communicate, which type of word do you use, what's your preference. The second bit is understanding what your child and looking at their language patterns, as I call it, or how they speak or what they say. Look at their texts if they're older children, or look at some of their schoolwork just to see if you can pick out and just monitor what they're saying to you. And so let's just give you a client success story then. So here's an example where the mom was, actually I'll do it here, then I'll put that screen on in a minute. So the mom, she was very visual, so she would talk in visual language. And when I spoke to her about her son and was coaching her to identify what language pattern he was clearly auditory. So one way she would communicate with him she would say, look, John, can you put your phone down so that I can talk to you? Whereas for him, he's more auditory. And so I asked her to change her language. And this is what she did when I spoke to her in this example. So she's visual and would use to start a conversation with her son and use look. And then a 14-year-old son was auditory. And then what she did was she changed it. So she'd say something like, John, I want to talk to you. Can you please put your phone down so we can chat? Now, when she did her previous conversations was she'd be in the kitchen sorting his dinner out or whatever it was. And so she'd be talking to him from a certain distance in this open plan downstairs in the home. But this time, what I asked her to do was to go over and sit with nearby. So what she did was she sat close by him. She started to pretend she was using her phone while he was using his phone. And while he was doing that, she then made the request, John, I want to talk to you. Can you please put your phone down so we can chat? But in the meantime, she did this thing where she sat with him, not too far away from him, started mimicking her using the phone. And eventually, after a couple of minutes, he stopped using the phone, his phone, turned round and started looking at her. And she said he wouldn't actually stop speaking. So it's the longest time that this 14-year-old had the conversation with him. So there's little things you can do around, using the creative language, the language pattern thing to help connect yourself with your child. And I've got testimonials on my website if you want to have a look at those, some videos about other examples too. So be careful what you ask for is what I put there, so you wouldn't stop talking. So, and then another example here, creative playful parenting, as I called it. So the context here is the father had his daughter over. He'd recently split up from his wife, or they were divorced. And what happened was his daughter, Jazzy, when she came over to see him, had drawn this picture. I look at this picture, it says, "For Papa, I'm really sorry that you, what did she put? You don't want me in my life. Sorry, from Jazzy. Sorry, Papa." And he was obviously devastated to receive that. And you can imagine what he was like. And so, as parents, you would then communicate how much you did love them and say what you need to say verbally to them. But one of the things I asked him to do was I asked him to draw a picture back. Use her crayons. It doesn't matter that you can't draw or anything. Just play, get draw a picture of why you do love her, or whatever you want to communicate with her. So this is what he drew. So can you see how fantastic? So he drew himself, look, with his arms up, and then he drew Jazzy with her arms up over here. And I don't know whether you can see that, but he put, I can't read it. I have feelings, and it's okay. And he's put something about she's got feelings and it's okay. That we are very different and that's okay. Connection is cool. And he's put at the bottom, he's put very unique and special person. That's he is. And he's also put she's very unique and a special person. But the title of it was The Mystery of True Love. And he's written this heart with all these words in it. And so anyway, so what happened was, I'm going to read this out to you. So he reported back in the Facebook group, in this group that I was in with him. So he said, my pictorial response, and that was that picture that I've just showed you. The feedback loop is great in this journey, and Atiya suggested I draw a reply to Jasmine. Thanks for that profound suggestion. Wow, again, just sitting and reflecting how to express my feelings in simple art. It took me back to childhood, sketching and my ego frustration that I am not an artist. Anyway, I sketched a reply to my daughter's picture in her preferred format. She woke this morning and saw it on the breakfast table and sat in silence whilst she read, and I left her there, not asking anything of her. I carried on making her toast, and she came to me, gave me a hug, and simply said, I like what you write, Papa. Let's put these two pictures on the fridge. With my other drawings, we now have a new form of expressing our true feelings. So, and then I wrote back to him and I said, I'm so happy for you and Jazzy. May the connection continue and keep drawing. It's awesome. It's not about perfection or being an artist. It's about being in your own essence and go with the flow. And that's what I do. I do look forward to any other reflections on your journey. I want to share drawing and doodling isn't just for kids, it's for adults too. And actually, for adults, like Tracy was saying, we tend to be left brain, as you get older and older and older, that, going into the right brain and doing drawings actually gets you into the present moment, and it helps you to just take you away from the day-to-day things. And actually it can help you process things and come up with new ideas in relation to work and all sorts of things. So it's drawing and doodling is a very powerful activity to do with your children. And one of the things I do with my nephew, for example, is we have a big sheet of paper out and I'll say, let's draw a spider. So I'll draw a spider and then he'll draw a spider at the other end. And then I'll say, you choose something. So he'll choose something and he'll choose an object. And then we just draw it. It doesn't matter that we don't draw it. And we look at each other's pictures and we have a laugh about it. So it's not about drawing to perfection. It's about, connecting with your kids in the best way possible, in their way and their mode. So I'm just going to finish this. So what he said here is, he said, Atiya, it is awesome. I sat this morning, it awkwardly started, then just started to scratch what I felt like drawing. And in the end, my message was clear to me and clear to Jazzy. You have taught me a new and noble form of communication with her daughter, and I thank you for that gift. So, so just to say, it's powerful things around drawing and drawing with your kids and doing these things. So the other thing before I talk about next steps is just to say to you that one of the other things that I'm really passionate about is how we as adults learn the latest thinking through the latest book, the the Big Leap, there's the Genius Code, there's the 4-Hour Week. There's all these books that come out around how we manage ourselves, how we manage our time. And so I'm really passionate about adults actually looking at that and saying, well, how does this apply to you might do it for yourself as an adult, but actually, how does that apply for my child? And what does it mean for my child? So using your own looking at it creatively for yourself to see how you might apply that for children, because it's about children also learning the latest thinking, not just what goes on in school, maths and English and the usual subjects, but also, and use drawings to actually capture the essence of things. Because when you capture pictures, when you capture information in a visual way, well, number one, your brain learns faster, and number two, you can recall the information. I've got something here, so let me just see. Here. So this is an example that I did as a drawing, which that's a mom, and she's pulling her hair out, and then that's two children arguing, and this is just really depicting, things that children do that make us angry. And so, but when I did that, it helps me to recall information very quickly, and share that. And that's good for, if you can imagine, when children do homework, if they can actually write their notes in visual ways, it helps them to remember it, access that information quickly, and actually recall it faster as well. So it has huge benefits. So in terms of next steps, are you ready to learn even more powerful, impactful, effective, creative strategies to make your life easier? Do you want to hone in on creative strategies to become even more effective in building consistent, good relationship with children so that they learn faster, their behaviours improve positively? Would you like to tap into the struggles your child may keep from you so you can help them navigate it and help them build their resiliency and coping skills? And I suspect it's yes for all of those. And would you like to learn other creative strategies from a community of like-minded people so that you gain what works from others too? And the other thing, what I'm really passionate is that when you're connecting with your children is really, really important, because mental health is on the rise. And actually some children won't, even though you might know intuitively as a mom something's going on, some children won't say anything. They'll just say, no, Mom, I'm okay. But actually, something's not quite right, but they're not opening up to you. So one of the things I teach as part of the neuro-linguistic programming, and we've just done a couple of things here, but is about how you connect deeply with your child using these other processes, layering on with the language pattern that helps the child to speak to you. And those deep connection strategies I teach helps the child to feel safe. And, you think that as a mom, because you demonstrate that you love them in your way, that's enough. In fact, it's been proven in research studies as well that it isn't. The child wants understanding and wants to feel safe. Yes, they do want to be loved, but they want to be loved in their way. So again, this language pattern thing is really, really important. And there's these other strategies too that we need to bear in mind.
Yeah.
So I think we've only got a minute to go, haven't we? So if you want to hear more, then you can contact me at Super Smart Stories, and there's a free practical solutions call if you want to have a call to discuss your specific thing. I just did a quick recap slide, which is understand your word preference. Is it visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? Be curious of your children from age 6 or 7, what word preference they use. Draw pictures and play with your children, their crayons, their pencils, their pens and paint. Share how you feel about them through your drawings, and think about other activities that you want to expose your children to that opens them up to their other senses. Even though they might have a predominant one, you might want to help them to expand their other senses a bit more as well. So it's not about keeping them in their own. It is for connection, but yeah. So anyway, I'll pause at that. Thank you, Tracy.
Oh no, that's fantastic. I just was thinking when you were talking in the classroom, because I had classes of 40 kids, so it's very challenging. But in a more core classroom, if maybe you've got 25 kids and
Yeah.
you're having troubles, and although I alluded to it, I think you have hit on it with the language that's being used when the teacher is not a visual learner, and or is to look at the language that the kid's using and look at the language the teacher's using, and why there's a disconnect. 'Cause I'm seeing how you're talking with parents, but you know, sometimes kids do feel more connected to teachers. And I was thinking, and I've thought about this as an art teacher, because a lot of times it'll be like, this is my favorite class, or this is the class I really hate. But I mean, so I am always using visual language because, and all kids who don't speak English are put their main screen into the art room because you're teaching visually. Said, well, they can get it because you demonstrate.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is a connection to them. And I'm thinking, yes, the work that you're doing with parents, but I'm thinking also maybe work with teachers on this might be the reason we're having a disconnect, you know, and having a
Absolutely. And the thing is with teachers, one of the things, you know, when you're in a large group with lots of kids and they've got different preferences, is as a teacher, you need to use all preferences. But if you've got some children that are being naughty or they're not getting on in school very well, they're the ones that the teachers need to hone on, because they're the one that disrupt the classroom, don't they, for everybody else. So if they can hone up more deeply with that particular child and use their language pattern on a one-to-one basis, where they put them in detention or whatever they do, you know, try to connect them from their language pattern perspective more so, they're going to stop all this thing that goes on in school around disruption by certain children in the room. But yeah,
I think of all the management tools that we've been given, you know, all the stuff that's right now, social emotional learning is the big thing. But, you know, this is so interesting that it's just like, oh, I want to try this out. I want to sit with the kids that are causing you the most trouble. And, you know, a substitute teacher, and this is really great. I'd say, if I know your name within 30 seconds, I know I should not know your name within 30 seconds. But what is it aside from being disruptive? But, you know, I feel like the management, I was just thinking, you know, we were taught to put our hands on the kid's shoulder. Oh, no, now we don't touch kids, you know, and or, you know, all the different stuff. But wow, within the language, the creative language. So we need to pair up on that. That is just fascinating. Yeah. So it's just like I have all these bells going off, and I hope those of you who are hearing the replay, it's going off for you too. And both of us, I noticed both of us are saying, wow, sitting with your child and using their tools, how powerful that is, that connection. See, it's nonverbal. It's you not even having to say anything. But I do want to tell you, parents, if you're feeling anxious about drawing, you draw better than your child. Okay. so
it's okay. But listen, it's okay not to draw better than your child, because your child will laugh at you, and it's a way of just laughing together. It's okay.
It's okay.
You know, mommy's having a go.
But having taught adult classes and women, it's always women who stopped their art development, you know, way back when, and want to connect with that. It is so hard. And I can tell you that I started off life as a third grade teacher, but I kept going by the art department at college going, you know, I should really do art, but I didn't feel like I was good. And this is the thing that we have around art and creativity. If I was going to take a French class, of which I know nothing, I would go knowing nothing and expect to be taught. But when it comes to art, we feel like we already have to be good because we're already in the analytical, judgmental mind. We have to be good before we'll put ourselves out there to have anybody else see it and judge it. And this we are doing to ourselves. And it is impacting us as parents. It certainly impacts us as teachers too, not wanting to be up there. But here's the curious thing that I've heard from, you know, obviously I've conducted 1,000 parent-teacher conferences, and hearing from parents, oh my gosh, they've put whiteboards up in our workplace, and we're expected to get up there and draw, you know, because it's to share concepts within a team, and how absolutely awful they're feeling about that. And it's changing like I said, in the classroom, it changes the dynamic. Here, it's changing the dynamic in the workplace for people who are confident and happy. And then all of a sudden, I have to get up there and I'm going to get judged for this. And so interesting to have those conversations. And the conversations with parents are going, it's not fair that you're grading my child. I don't want my child to be an artist. I don't want them to do that for a living. It's like, I'm not training your child to be an artist. I'm training your child to be a thinker, a problem solver. That's all that this is.
And that's the misconception, isn't it, that they get? They think art is just art and playing around with colors and things like that. And actually, it's much deeper process.
Far deeper, because hopefully you are hearing from us, it is your right brain thinking that's just vitally important to you, and you do use it, but you're also really, really well trained, because that's what school is doing, is training that other type of thinking. And before we stop, I just have to have a cautionary tale to parents about driving, because you're getting tickets for having your cell phone right up to your ear. Okay, you're trying to do two brain functions at the same time. Driving is a right brain activity. It's about judging spaces and distances and all of this, and you're constantly having to monitor all that. Talking on your phone is a left brain activity. You're talking, so talking is precise. It's the one right thing. And also when you're doing that, you're kind of losing focus. You lose the right brain. You're all of that spatial stuff that you need to be paying attention to. You're trying to do those two things at once. That's why you're getting a ticket. And that's why we beg you, don't talk on your phone when you're driving. Okay? So from this talk, if you take nothing else, it's have safety for yourself and your kids. We're in this habit now of, we can't be disconnected for 2 seconds, and just realize, oh, that's a function I am not going to partake in right now. I am being very right brain here. So if nothing else, then parents, be safe, but have this connection with your kids over your language and over those activities that you can be doing with your kids, that they're not hard. They're really not hard. And don't make it hard. Just relax about it yourself, whatever you think about your abilities, kind of let that go for your child, because it's going to be a powerful experience and connection with them. So with that, I think we are going to end our show for today, and be sure to pick this up on the replay. It's fantastic stuff, and we look forward to hearing about you putting it into the chat. I'm going to put some things over there, just little things you can do, like I mentioned, just playing with flashcards as far as being creative about how you use them. We just use that all the time as kids, and I think, wow, that did a lot for our thinking.